Okay.
Both flying blind here.
We're flying blind. All right. That's really the motto of this show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tailgate Report. Hi, YouTube. Nate Chandler. And this is the big one. This is our playoff preview special. Always one of our favorite shows of the year for good reason. We're going to have a lot to talk about. Couple games last week, couple games this week, and so much more. But we begin, Chandler. 1 week ago on this program, you wore a New York Yankees hat. Where'd it go?
Yeah, it disappeared. Baseball season's over. There's no baseball games remaining.
There's none?
No,
Really?
none that matter. It's over. It's high school football season, NFL, any sort of football you want to watch. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So I misread that, apparently. That I thought there were more games, but there aren't.
No, the championship, the Yankees beat Cleveland last week.
Okay, yep.
That was the last games I remember.
All right, cool.
And then the season was done after that.
Cool. Awesome.
Yep.
Great. All right, let's just talk about high school football. I think that's what we're better at. All right, so we have a lot to do on the show. So we're going to break down a couple of games. We'll do the Grandville game. Of course, we'll also do our Muskegon Mona Shores game from Friday night. We'll also then, of course, preview Grandville Caledonia. Everyone, of course, knows about that game. Duh. And then also, we've added a game. Lowell and Zeeland West. Game night will also be there with coverage of that game on Friday night, so that should be a ton of fun as well, and we've got a lot to get to in that game. Then, of course, it is our yearly playoff picks. We'll go through pretty much kind of all the big, mostly okay conference-type divisions around West Michigan, or districts, I should say, make our picks there and go from there. And let's start, though, with where we were last week, Chandler. We were at Old Hackley Stadium. Thanks to anyone that bared with us through that, because we had internet problems, if you couldn't tell. We were on, we were off. We dropped the Facebook stream approximately 6 seconds into the broadcast. The company had spent money to promote it onto Facebook, and we dropped the stream 6 seconds in. That's always a good thing. That makes me happy. And then we dropped the YouTube stream at halftime. The Twitter stream, I think, worked, but no one watched it. And then the main stream, a lot of people somehow still stayed on and watched. So thanks to everyone that bared with us through that. Thank you to Chandler for bearing with me. I got angry at points in time, that mostly just yelling at my phone why it wouldn't create internet, why I couldn't sign into the other internet, on and on and on. But we made it. It was a fun game, and that's where it starts. 55-35. I mean, Muskegon makes a statement in that game. That's where you have to start.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, the second half, when you look at kind of what people expected Muskegon to be and kind of what they are on paper coming into the season, you saw it all come together in that second half. And at the perfect time for the Big Reds as they now look forward to the playoffs and after that big win. But, I mean, yeah, they just put it all together. The offense, I think, was the biggest thing. They didn't stop. I mean, there was an onslaught. Mona Shores had a couple drives in the second half, but for the most part, it was just Muskegon getting the football and just big play after big play, showing off their three main playmakers and scoring touchdowns on big plays.
Talk about a tale of two halves, or really even a tale of kind of 3 quarters and 1 quarter, really. I mean, the first 2 quarters, 14-14 at the half, both teams just really grinding it out in the game. And then we go in the second half, in the third quarter, we've got 5 total touchdowns. Muskegon at least keeps pouring it out in the fourth quarter as well. It's amazing that the way that the offense is just completely opened up. It didn't seem like it was going to change that much, but just everyone started scoring at will, and you could tell with, the defenses just kept having to run right back out on the field, and it just turned into kind of this constant cycle of more and more scoring. That third quarter in particular was one of the craziest 12 minutes of high school football I've called in a while.
It really was, and it started with Mona Shores having the big play down the field,
True.
A quick touchdown in the third quarter, and you think, okay, it felt like Shores had controlled the first half for the most part. They possessed the football, had a couple impressive drives, got some stops defensively, and it kind of felt like Muskegon was fortunate to be tied at half. It kind of felt like the Mona Shores had dominated, but then they come out, score that first on the first long drive, couple plays, punch it in the end zone. You think Mona Shores is about to run away with it, and boy, that was the complete opposite. Muskegon gets the ball, they tie it. Before you know it, they're way ahead and not looking back.
Big thing about this game, I mean, I think we'll talk about the impact actually in a second for each team kind of going forward. But the quarterback battle, we talked a lot about it. Both first-year starters, the junior Mackay guy for Muskegon, who was our player of the game with 4 rushing touchdowns and like 160 yards or so. Jonathan Pittman, the sophomore, had a good game for Mona Shores as well. That really, really lived up to the hype, that battle, especially in the second half when they got rolling. I think Guy took the forefront in that battle with what he did down the stretch. An unbelievable touchdown run, his kind of 40-yard, put the spin move on run. That was the one that put his team back on top. It was a really impressive performance by a pair of young quarterbacks. I can't wait until they do it again next year at Mona Shores.
Yeah, awesome that we get to see that battle take place again with those exact players. But, yeah, I think we kind of talked about the half, too. With less offense, neither quarterback had a huge first half. I think Muskegon asked Mackay Guy to do a little bit more. They were going to kind of lean on him. They did so throughout the whole game. The Sailors, a little more conservative in what they were asking Pittman and his playmaking ability. But you saw it in the second half when the big plays started happening. Price, the running back, for most of the first half, dominated, had a lot of yards on the ground, and then Mackay Guy took over in the second half. Just individual effort plays. There was some open holes where he was running through, but yeah, the spin moves, the jukes along the sideline, the speed. You could see it all. Just the individual effort, making guys miss, adding extra yards onto plays.
Again, 55-35, dominant performance down the stretch from Muskegon. Destin Piggy making all the big runs, Jacob Price so solid. Let's talk about this game to wrap up this contest in the bigger picture, CT. First off, let's talk about Mona Shores. They enter, we'll talk about it later, a District of Doom. Maybe not quite as much a District of Doom of what we thought it would be, but they still have got a lot of tough games. In particular, they've got likely a district championship game looming with Forest Hill Central at the end of things. This is the kind of game that they're a well-coached team, well-tested team. We know that, but this is the kind of game that can take some wind out of your sails, so to speak, for the Sailors. Just kind of get into that because it's a good performance. They played so well in the first half, but then to get run by like that in a rivalry game has to put you on the back foot a little bit. That'll be a talking point, by the way, about our Grandville Caledonia game a little bit later on, but talking about it in Mona Shores first.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough setback for Mona Shores there because they had one loss coming into it against an incredible Rockford team, one of the best teams in the area.
A Rockford team they should have beat.
Yeah, a game that they were in, so a loss, but you feel okay about that one. Ran through their conference season. Obviously always looking forward to this matchup at the end of the season, and they felt good coming into it. They were the so-called favorite, I would think, by a lot of people coming into it. They played the first half, they played pretty well, and then things, just kind of got blown out there in the second half, and so that's tough when you've put 8.5 weeks on tape where you're feeling really good. You feel like you're one of the best teams in the round, one of the best teams that's been on the field, and then you get kind of knocked around for a second half against one of your rival teams, and so it's kind of tough to rebound. Luckily, they don't have to see Muskegon again. They've got some tough matchups in their district, but some maybe some more winnable games compared to what the standard is there. But it's a quick turnaround. Yeah, I think you still saw a lot of the bright spots of why they have been as good as what they have been.
Yep.
And I think they're definitely still on the right track if they can just kind of jump past that one and turn it around.
Muskegon, and this will start to give away a little bit of some of my thoughts, and our picks are coming up later. Everyone was high on them. They were pretty much unanimous number 1 power ranked team in West Michigan before the season started. We had seen some of the down moments throughout the year. Now having seen them in person, this is maybe my first quote-unquote prediction type thing of the day. I would have to look deeper in terms of kind of their later round games. I think this is the team that may be doing with Dante Moore and King when it comes to the state championship game right now. They seem like the talent, the level of play is there right now. I feel like they have kind of hit this stride level right now that it's all right, watch this.
Yeah, I think definitely. Sometimes that's what it takes with a team like that is kind of to get poked a little bit. They had a pretty successful regular season, but kind of compared to what the expectations were, maybe not quite living up to the hype. Played some close games, lost a couple games, and you maybe wouldn't have expected them to lose coming into the season. Sometimes it takes that rivalry week, a game you're not expected to win. You're the underdog. All of a sudden, get your playmakers going. I think you saw the best of what they can be, especially offensively, and if they're able to replicate that going forward. I think they found kind of the right mix of pieces there to be something special, and I think all of a sudden you're going back and saying what the expectations were at the beginning of the season are definitely attainable.
All right, let's quickly transition from that. Muskegon 55, Mona Shores 35. That was a lot of fun, and hopefully at some point in time we might see one of those teams again in this playoffs. Who knows where things may go, but certainly would look forward to that opportunity. All right, Grandville East Kent with the Bulldogs closed the year with a win 34-21. I don't 100% know what happened because, of course, we weren't there. So all we know is what we've seen through some stats and through some highlights. Of course, also watching the old or the recap or the replay is the word I'm looking for, broadcast with Joey Sutherland on the Michigan Sports Radio call. There's no one that just fights. I'm supposed to be able to talk, and there's no one that just fights for words more than me. I feel like on this show some weeks, so I just drop one completely. I think just wrap it up, Chandler. Solid, consistent, controlled win against a team that did some things that had bugged Grandville. I think it was a very important win the last week of the year.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, and having not been there, there's nothing that immediately jumps out other than, it looks like just kind of an all-around good game to end the season. I think the offense, East Kentwood had a really good defense coming into it. I believe Granville scored the second highest amount of points against the Falcons. Rockford scored 40+, and then Granville scoring 30 against a solid defense like that's a good sign. I think you still feel pretty comfortable about where the offense is at. The defense gave up some big plays, gave up a touchdown late that made things look a little bit different, but I think for the most part kept East Kentwood at bay. The game never in serious doubt to the point where they were getting run over.
A couple highlights that popped out to me. The last one you may have just seen, Drew Hungerford was filling in. I think LaCroix was out, it looked like. He kind of filled in at tight end, got a touchdown grab. This, though, Chandler, I'll let you talk about in a second, might be there's a couple keys to the game to watch. We know the importance. We, of course, have sung the importance of Tyson Mann coming back. Tyson Mann breaking this 65-yard touchdown on kind of a screen-type play, I think is one of the most important things you're going to see. I mean, this is, I guess it's not a screen, whatever. This is some old-school wheel route. This is old-school Tyson Mann. This is speed. This is running by guys, around guys. This is huge to have him back for this week in this sort of capacity, and that means both sides of the football.
It really does. I mean, I think the first thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more as we preview next week, the number one thing you look at, what can the Bulldogs change from the first time they played Caledonia, and Tyson Mann's the first thing offensively. He's another playmaker. You can add him back into the mix, and we saw him a couple weeks ago. You get back on the field, get a carry, still look just a little bit tender, but of course, working his way back into game action after a long time off, it's going to take some time. But I think on that highlight there, you see he's starting to get back more into game speed. You see him catch the ball in the open field, make a couple guys miss, and that's exactly what he was doing the first couple weeks of the season.
Not only, you talk about all the offensive elements, Jaden Terry scores again, looks good. Carson Smith, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown as well that he scored on a bootleg keeper play. All of that very good, of course. But I think the fact that the defense, against a good physical team, the defense only gives up 21. I think they turned the ball over at least one, or they made East Kentwood turn the ball over a couple times, at least once, then a couple times. That's also very good heading into this week, because I think this week we're not going to get into keys. Turning the ball over, making stops, going to be so big for this defense, and a very good job by this defense to kind of shake off the rust from that Grand Haven performance. Say, let's get rid of that. Let's play another tough physical team with a little bit more talent than Grand Haven even. Give up 21. All right, well done.
Yes, you feel a whole lot better. I mean, things were a little bleak last week when you're against a Grand Haven team that's been down by most standards. You give up some points, give up some big plays. You kind of you need to survive that last week, kind of put something together. I mean, it didn't need to be a shutout in order to feel better about where the defense was at. It was just, kind of hold your ground, kind of get back to the way they were playing early on in the season, getting some of that continuity back in the secondary there as well. And so I think they did that, giving up 21 points to East Kentwood. I think they'll take that and kept the game at a pretty safe distance.
Yeah, all right. A lot more to break down. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back here on the Tailgate Report on game night.
The sinister cries haunted Mary through the night. Dawn neared, and still the voice tormented her. She ran towards the safety of her car, flung open the door, and and a coyote had somehow gotten locked inside. But the damaged interior was covered thanks to Farmers Insurance. Coyote Carpool, August 1st, 2015. Talk to a farmer's agent. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Contact the Scott Bates Agency today, 616-531-3441. A proud supporter of MichiganGameNight.com.
I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities Company. Recently, I read this statement. When it comes to developing intimacy remotely, sometimes it's better to be heard and not seen. That got me thinking, and I discovered that since this pandemic began, voice-only calls have increased by 78%. And the length of these calls has also increased. Today, Zoom is touted as the savior of business, academia, and keeping families connected. But there is some evidence that video apps make us feel awkward and unfulfilled. There's even an app available that rates your background when you're on Zoom. Then there's the phone, which is basically a handheld texting machine, a social networking black hole. But mouth-to-ear communication is on the rise, and it is most welcome. Like I said earlier, sometimes it's better to be heard and not seen. At Centennial Securities, we love hearing from you, even if we can't always see you. If you're a Centennial client, you know what I mean. If not, isn't it about time?
Centennial Securities Company, member SIPC and FINRA.
And hi everyone, welcome back to Game Night. Nate Dry with you here, and joining our weekly and our first playoff edition of Coach's Corner with Grandville head coach Eric Stiegel. First off, Coach, I know it's playoff week, of course excited. How are you?
I'm great. We're excited to, still be playing football and then one of those teams keep going on. And, we're excited to, just continue to be with the kids and have that experience and, be preparing again. And we want to keep playing, for 5 more weeks. That's the goal. I'm sure that's the goal of every team that is in the playoffs.
Of course. And we'll get in the playoffs next. And, of course, such a big matchup against Caledonia. But first, take a step back, win over East Kentwood, close the regular season now on a 3-game win streak. And I think just all around, CT and myself weren't there, but just watching the broadcast replay and stuff, it seemed like just really solid all-around performance against a really good team.
You know what? That's what I felt too. I felt, that it wasn't always a perfect game. And in almost some ways that was good for us. That, there were some things that we did bad at times and they did well, but we were able to go through those. We were able to, really just kind of be tough, focus on that next play at hand, and get some key plays when right after some things maybe didn't go our way. So it was actually, I think, to me, a good thing that we had to go through some of that, because there were some plays where we looked at it, we had a punt go off, a kind of a dumb look play, a punt bounced off Avon Cott's head when he was getting ready to block, and they get the ball in our territory, and right after that, we stop them on four straight downs, get the ball back, and we go down and score. I think plays like that are you need those things. Obviously, we're hoping we don't have any more punts go off our head, but you need to make plays like that to win against good teams, because they're going to make plays and you're going to make mistakes, and then you got to be able to regroup, put your foot in the ground, and and just kind of stand tall, whether that's the offensive side of the ball, special teams, or defense. So it was a complete game. Defense, I think, played its best game in a while. Some key stops. They did some good things early, but I think, again, we kind of put our foot in the ground. Did a good job with their quarterback, who was a good runner. They just kind of really got him back. Did a good job with their running game, and our defensive backs. I think we noticed a difference having Tyson Mann back there, and Carson Smith got some action there too. I think Cash Ruff probably played his best game too in the defensive backfield. So good to see some guys getting back into the defensive backfield for us, but also some of our other guys playing really well on defense that have kind of stepped up as the season's gone on.
Yeah, you mentioned Tyson Mann, and of course, kind of injuries and guys in and out of the lineup have been a big story with you guys all year. But talk about Tyson and the impact, not just now that he's starting to get more reps, made some big plays on both sides of the ball, but what just his impact to be back in the lineup and what that means.
Well, Tyson is. He is one of the most unique players I've ever coached in a really good way. I mean, he's a guy that he's got a little goofiness to him at practice, but he's a very intelligent player. I think everybody in our team loves him. All the coaches love him, just personality wise. And then on top of that, obviously you're looking at a unique talent. I think on the offensive side of the ball, I think you saw, probably his biggest play was we had a 1st and 25 after a penalty, and then Carson hits him up the sideline for a 65-yard touchdown where, he catches it, makes a guy miss and makes another guy miss and takes it all the way. And, Carson has extreme confidence in him throwing him the ball in terms of, whether he's covered or not. He's got, I think those two have had a connection. They played together for a long time. I think that's big on that level. And I think in the defensive secondary, what you saw out of him was just some of his ability to see things happen in front of him and have just some of that instinctual ability then to know this is where the throw is going and I'm going to be there to break it up at the point or put a hit on the receiver at the point. I think those kind of plays are critical, but I think one of the more under-heralded things that he is great at, he's gotten really good at. We saw him start to get back in the second half. He is not the biggest running back we've ever had. He's probably one of the smallest. He's 6'1", 165 pounds, but he is an exceptional inside runner and finds space inside. And I think early in the year, you saw him against Byron Center and Hudsonville play outstanding. I think he probably had 6 or 7 touchdowns in a 2-game span. And then he got hurt. And then I think you really saw Jaden Terry emerge as kind of maybe our lead guy. But I think the great thing now for us is Tyson, he came back and was very limited on offense. We used him limited against Grand Haven, but played a lot of snaps against East Kentwood. And I think in the second half, we really start to see him find all the little crevices in the defense that a lot of kids just don't have that ability to do. So I think he's tremendous, and obviously didn't even mention the return game. Right. He's one of the better kick returners. So I think he impacts all 3 phases of the game, both obviously with his physical abilities, but also just the aura that he brings to our team. And again, we played really well without him, and our guys stepped up. But there's no doubt he's one of the best players in the conference. And it's obviously we're thrilled to have him back heading into this stretch right here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And let's kind of get into we'll talk about Caledonia, but now first kind of generically playoffs. I think for you as a coach, what has always kind of been your approach? Do you and the team more go at it like it's just another week? Do you get extra amped up? Is that something that's maybe changed throughout your coaching career? How do you kind of approach these sort of big playoff weeks?
Well, number one, thankfully in our time, we've done a good job here. We've been in the playoffs 8 of my 9 years here. So there's an expectation, I think, from our kids, from our coaches, and our community that, we're going to be there. And that expectation is not some automatic thing, but the expectation is that we're going to work our butts off to get us to that point. And we've done that. In terms of bigger game, obviously it's a huge game because if you want to play another game, you got to win. But our approach really is every week is the biggest game of the year because in high school football, whether it is injuries or whether, some of the craziness we've had the past couple of years, you never really know when your season was going to go on or to end. So every game we play is a special one, and it has a lot of meaning. And this one's obviously the biggest game of the year right now because it is the game in front of us. And for us to keep playing, we have to get a win. So the approach really is that. I think there's obviously another approach to this kind of playoff game as opposed to the last couple of years, is that we're playing a team that we've already played this year. So I think that does add some things into the mix where, the previous 2 years we ended up playing TC West, who is someone that is not in our conference. Now, if you look at our district, it's 4 OK Red schools. And, we have experience with all those schools. And we have, experience with Caledonia. So there's going to be some things that I'm sure we're going to do the same and do differently and vice versa for them. So there's a little bit of, intrigue there with just, how do these teams adjust? And, what do we pick up that they do early? What do they pick up that we do early that's different? And there's a little bit of that game that is, also employed in a playoff game like this with a rematch where it's not like, hey, we played these guys last year. It's, well, we played these guys and, for the most part, they got the same kids out there, just like us. They've had some kids banged up here and there, and I think they're going to have some kids returning and stuff. But for the most part, it's a lot of the same kids. And what do we have to do better? I'm sure they're looking at the same way. Caledonia saying, what do we have to do better to ensure we win? And we're looking at, hey, what do we got to clean up to ensure that we're the ones moving on from this week?
Yeah, and let's get into it. So Caledonia, of course,
right.
50-40 the first time around.
Right.
I mean, you guys for the bulk of the season until last week had accounted for half of the offense that Caledonia had scored all year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, take me through some of the things maybe that you learned from that first matchup, kind of the first time around, some of those keys that you may be looking at for matchup number 2 against the Fighting Scots.
Well, I think that game too. I think one of the big keys for them was that we didn't execute particularly well on either side of the ball early. We went out there, they stopped us on a 4th down near midfield and scored, and then we drove. I think we had an interception. They score. I mean, the game was 20. So the game was 21-0 in the first period, and you're kind of going, "Hey, this looks like what they've been doing to a lot of people." But we dug in a little bit, and we obviously got to within 1 score at halftime. It was a 1-score game most of the game from that point on. They had 7 touchdowns. We had 6 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big key for us, and I'm sure they'll think the same thing, is, us being able to get out and play well early. Hopefully that means getting a lead early, but also just kind of digging in early and getting us some stops on defense early, moving the ball well, both on the ground and the air early, and just kind of establishing and getting a rhythm on offense and defense. And we really didn't get that the first time. They, and a lot of that credit goes to them. I mean, they're a very, very good football team. The quarterback gets a lot of attention, as deserved. The running back gets a lot of attention, as deserved. But I really do think that their offense and defensive lines are very good. And I'll count their H-back tight end in that mix there. So they're a very good physical football team at the line of scrimmage. So I think that's what makes them really that's what makes them a team that is really, really good. They have some special players at the skill spots. All the skill spots are good. But then you start to look at their defense. Like you mentioned, they have shut a lot of people down all year. Great linebacking play, secondary that is physical. And I said, I think their D-line is arguably the best in the conference. If not, Rockford is right up there. And, and look at the 2 teams that had beat us this year. Mm-hmm. So I think that they present a lot of challenges because they do a lot of things well. They have an ability on offense to run the ball, both with the quarterback and the running backs. And they have the ability to, stretch the field vertically with the passing game. A very good vertical passing game. So it does put you, it does put you in a situation where, it's not just clear cut. Hey, well, this is the only thing we got to do and we win. So they put you in those spots. But, we do think that, we're a young team. Even last week, we played 6 sophomores and a freshman out there against Kentwood. That when you have a young team, those guys are going to grow throughout the season. And we have seen a lot of growth in our younger players as the season has moved on. So that is something to me that I'm excited to see. I think probably especially on defense, how some of our younger guys play this time around against one of the best teams in the state. With that, so it'll be a great challenge, but one that we're really looking forward to and really excited about and feel really good about.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm certainly excited to see it as well, and good luck to you and the guys out there. It's going to be a great one, and thanks again for your time, Coach.
Yeah, and anybody listening, remember that is you may have already said this, but it is Saturday, 1:00 at East Kentwood where you're playing. So if you want to get out there, if you're a Bulldog fan, come out, be loud, and come support the guys. And we're looking forward to it. So hey, thanks a lot, Nate, for everything you guys do to support Grandville and also just high school sports and high school football in general. And go Dogs!
All right, go Dogs! Grandville head coach Eric Stiegel. Bulldogs take on Caledonia.
Daniel the deer danced everywhere. He pranced through fields and jigged through rivers. Then he saw it. What a stage! A place no deer had dared dance before. the hood of a brand new car. Hey, my car! And the car was covered, thanks to Farmers Insurance. Deer Dance Floor, December 1st, 2014. Talk to a Farmers agent. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Contact the Scott Bates Agency today, 616-531-3441. A proud supporter of MichiganGameNight.com.
And welcome back. Thanks, as always, to Coach Stiegel for joining us on this week's Coach's Corner segment on this playoff edition, of course. And all right, let's do some playoff individual game breakdowns. And we'll be moving through these semi-quickly because there's only so much more to say. I mean, we could say a lot about both these, but we'll have a lot in the playoff preview segment to say as well. Let's start with the game that we're doing Friday night at Zeeland Stadium. Zeeland West, it's the Ducks versus the Red Arrows of Lowell and Chandler. These are really just, as I wrote, two classic West Michigan teams. They embody traditional power football, state championship history. I mean, you wish that Noel Dean was still at Lowell if you had Shillito versus Dean, what kind of coaching battle that would be. But a good staff in place at Lowell now. Just, it's power. I mean, it's, both teams have tweaked. Zeeland West has not tweaked their offense. Lowell has tweaked their offense, maybe just a touch over the years, but still kind of the same basic things that they always have traditionally run. It's going to be tough. This is going to be a war.
Yeah, it is. I mean, kind of a classic power-on-power first round of the playoffs matchup here. I think definitely when you're looking at two teams that pride themselves on being tough and playing the style of football that's going to win in the playoffs, these are two teams that throughout the years have done just that. And I think exciting to see them match up in the first round. Kind
of a tough-ish break for them too, because they do escape some of the other big D3 teams. Think of Cedar Springs and Zeeland and Muskegon. They wound up escaping, but you have to play each other in the first round in a 2-3 game. So that certainly is tough, especially for an 8-1 Zeeland West team who only lost to a D2 Mona Shores team. That's a little tough, I think, for me to swallow this. And now I'm a 2 seed and I have to play Lowell in the first round, who plays a lot of big teams in the OK White. Let's take a look at each of these teams. First off, Lowell. I'm calling it a pro-style multiple offense. What do I mean by that exactly? Well, it's a lot of power looks, a lot of different things, but they run literally everything. Their base is probably an I form. Running some options, some looks out of that. They run some single back, some shotgun, normally just 2 wide receiver, kind of more power sets. Even like you saw in that first play, they run some ski gun like we saw last week. I mean, this is, if you like power football, this is every offense, like I do. Like, this is one of my favorite offenses in the West Michigan area because they just show you a little bit of absolutely everything. Like, they're going to be fun to call.
Yeah, I think an offense that keeps it creative. I mean, at their core, like you said, they're going to run a lot of power football. They're going to run the ball, but they mix up the looks enough to kind of keep it interesting. They run different formations, keeps the defense, keeps them focused on where guys are lining up, different formations that they're going to throw at you, but kind of still running the same type of offense.
Yeah, it's going to start with their quarterback, Jackson Rice Big, the junior, solid, multifaceted quarterback. Runs the ball well when he needs to run the ball well, throws well, especially on shorter, precise passing, kind of dink and dunk. You hit it with the option, just chunk your way down the field. He's very good at just doing the precise plays that need to be done.
Yeah, I think, they kind of keep it West Coast in a sense that way, where they're not really throwing the football down the field, taking deep shots, and I think that plays into part of the power run game as well, where they utilize their weapons on the outside when they've got 1 or 2 wide receiver sets, but utilize the short passing game to where they can get some quick hitter throws and get the ball out quick to their playmakers.
And this game right here against Forest Hill Central, pretty much the closest anyone's gotten to Forest Hill Central all year, and it shows their style. 14-7, they ground you down. Look at 108 passing yards, 106 rushing yards. Pretty darn balanced, and that's kind of how they're going to want to do it all the time, and that's what we can expect to see. Some other guys, Aiden Fitzpatrick is their kind of leading wide receiver, cornerback, of course, very good defensive unit we can talk about. They tackle well, they play well in the secondary. That's big against stopping the T, so you can look to him. A couple good guys in the backfield. They'll mix things up. Kind of their lead running back will also go and play some fullback, and they'll kind of move them around. So they do a lot of unique things. Does Lowell. We'll quickly move on as well now to Zeeland West. Again, not going to spend too much time on either of these games since we do have 2 games plus the big breakdown coming up later to get through. But Zeeland West, John Shillito is the head coach. Chandler, that means it's going to be right there for one of the best darn run power tees you're going to see. And this year is, once again, no exception with what the Ducks bring.
Yeah, I mean, year after year, they just continue to run it back. I mean, with Coach Shilato there, they make the playoffs almost every year, basically every year, and he's got them ready to make a run once again, a very successful regular season. As you said, one loss to a very good team there, but I think definitely a team that is going to execute. They know they've been here before, and they'll be ready for sure.
And it's both sides of the ball. They're technically sound. They run to the ball. They tackle. They make plays. They break things open. Their running back group is pretty simple. Skylar Gurink is the one tailback. Parker Holman, the fullback. Trenton Bullhouse, the other running back. They don't mix it up much. They're going to stick with most of the same three, but the guy I want to focus on is Parker Holman, the fullback. Seen him breaking a couple different plays on this highlight. I mean, he is a dynamic fullback. He really runs well out of the trap and some other options as well. When you have a fullback, listen, we know how to talk about the team. When you have a fullback that is that dynamic and can do so many different things, run with some power, run with some speed, it just adds so much to a T offense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that really opens things up when you've got a guy at the fullback position that can get you some tough yards when you need it, but also if he's able to, if there's a missed assignment defensively or an opening along the defensive line, he's going to make you pay for it, got the speed to get to the next level as well.
He reminds me, saw that last play, and he reminds me a little bit, if you're a Bulldog fan, of almost a little bit bigger version of Carson Kopko. He kind of bounces, springs his way through the open field. I mean, Kopko is one of the best in terms of Bulldogs running backs at weaving. He does a little bit of that. Just so very solid. They run the T so well. When it comes to fakes, when it comes to those sort of elements, that is what always makes them so good. Trevor Waller, second-year senior quarterback, very precise as well. That's the main thing that Lowell's going to have to deal with is the preciseness and the crispness, I think, is the best way to put it, of running a T. We have the ability to watch the T often, and I think we've seen when it's working, when it's not. This one works because it so often is just precise. They make the fakes. They don't make mistakes in how it's run, and they put the defense just that bit of hesitation on the back foot.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it so difficult keeping a defense honest, really keeping them, there's really no room for error across the board, any position when you play a T team like that, because they continue to run their offense. Each play sets up the next. They don't hurt themselves. They don't go backwards on plays. They put themselves in good situations, and they just continue to wear you down.
All right, so that's Zeeland West and Lowell. That game will start at 6:30. Our coverage on Friday night from Zeeland for that one, so that should be a ton of fun. All right, how about this one then? It's the ultimate rematch. It's Grandville and Caledonia Chandler, and it's a game that I'm certainly looking forward to for obvious reasons. Caledonia's licking their wounds. They'd be the first to tell you they got their butts handed to them. I heard from some different people that were at the game, and I've been kind of talking and hearing some things about the game. All right, what happened sounded like it was mostly Rockford's second team in. When Caledonia was doing the scoring, it could have been a shutout. They turned the ball over. Rockford turned the ball over, though, a couple times, too. I mean, it was they had it handed to them, and they'll be licking their wounds a little bit, and it's going to give Grandville a chance, I think, to execute on that if they needed that extra little bit anyway, because it already was so close. It was a one-touchdown game last time, even though it was 10 points. I mean, it's a showcase Saturday afternoon game. I mean, help set the scene.
Yeah, I think, ever since the Bulldogs dropped the two games in conference to both Rockford and Caledonia, you kind of knew a matchup against one of the two was coming at some point. Of course, now in the same district as both of them, getting Caledonia in the first round. But I think when you look at the regular season games, a game that the Bulldogs played closer if you're just going off of the final score. And as you said, Caledonia now coming off a loss. They're trying to rebound quickly after most of the season, dominating everyone, kind of circling this game at the end of the season against Rockford, hoping they're the one that knocks them off and kind of goes and carries that into the playoffs. And now they're on the other end of that, where it was a bit of a disappointment. They thought they were the better team, and Rockford still just dominated them. I think, when we previewed that game last week, we both had picked Rockford. I trusted Rockford's defense to get a stop more than Caledonia's. I didn't think it would be
every stop.
I didn't think it'd be every stop. So that was a bit surprising. But still a very talented Caledonia team, and you can't, just because of the loss in Week 9, you can't take away everything they did through the first 8 weeks of the season.
Let's get into some of the specifics of this game for Grandville. The questions have been around the defense. looking better after last week. Tyson Mann, hopefully some other guys getting healthy as well. We could talk more about that, but I want to start by talking about Carson Smith. I think he's had a lot of critical games this year. I think this will be the most important game he has to play in terms of his level of play all year. He's coming off a great game, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. It's going to be that kind of performance. He's going to have to be able to pass the ball well to help keep pace. He's going to have to help run the ball, get the bootleg to open up more opportunities. I mean, it's going to be that game. He's going to have to be a steady 4-year senior leader as he has been all year. But this is the game where I think Carson Smith is going to have to kind of step ahead, put everything on the table, and kind of lead the way for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. He's been steady is the perfect word for what he's been throughout the whole season. In a couple close games or even when they're down, he's stepped up and kind of kept them in it at times. Hasn't made the big mistake. Continues to run the offense well and allow them to stay in games. But I think you're exactly right. And this is probably the game, it was early in their season too when they were trying to keep pace with the Fighting Scots. I think this is another game where you're probably going to have to ask him to do a little bit more, maybe go out and try to make some more big plays. I mean, you don't want to force it, and that's not, it's not what the Bulldogs offense is at times, but this is the game where, you might be playing from behind a little bit. You're going to need to make something happen and kind of see what he can do.
All right, so you look at Carson Smith, quarterback battle on the other side of things. Mason McKenzie, kind of going back to what I heard about what happened at that game, he wasn't, I don't know if it was injury related, but he didn't run the ball too much. And I still think he's fighting some nagging residual effects of that injury. I know Townsend's fighting some injury stuff as well going back a couple weeks, so those are all talking points. But Mason McKenzie, if Caledonia is going to win this game, if they're going to have the same success moving the ball they did last time, he has to be able to run the ball highly effectively. If McKenzie is unable to run the ball effectively like he did for 4 touchdowns on the ground last time, I don't think Caledonia is going to win this game. Like, I still think it's that to be able to set things up against this Grandville defense and to be as effective as they want to be, Mason McKenzie is going to have to be healthy enough and on his game to run the football.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different ways you can look at it when you see just the special performance that he had last time against the Bulldogs. You have no doubt, you can't help but be impressed at what he did and putting the team on his back and scoring 50 points and keeping that game and keeping a lead for Caledonia. But at the same time, it also, from the Bulldogs' perspective, you can look at it as it took that performance to beat them by a touchdown and 10-point game. And so if he is not at 100% or doesn't fully replicate those numbers, Bulldogs make an adjustment, try to slow him down even just a little bit, and you think, okay, you're right in this game and hopefully able to keep pace.
X factors to the game, keys to the game. Let's start with Grandville. If they're going to beat Caledonia this time, what are we going to have to see the Bulldogs do both sides of the ball to get it done?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, they have to come up with a stop. I think you just saw way too many big plays against the Fighting Scots the first time where it was the read option and it's McKenzie and he's going 70 yards and it's a quick touchdown. And, man, that's just a letdown after your offense has been out there and grinding and working their way down the field, getting some points to keep them in it, and then your defense goes out there and gives up a big play, and you're kind of in this endless cycle of trying to catch up and trying to get even. And so they're going to have to play well. I mean, you could say along the defensive line, I mean, they're going to have to make the right reads and have, the defense set up in order to stop that read option, if we're going to see it, especially with McKenzie if he's healthy and running the football. But I think also in the secondary, I mean, the Caledonia has a pretty strong passing offense as well, but they also, I mean, they need to tackle. They need to come up and they need to play the run game as well. I think you just saw too many times where McKenzie was outrunning the secondary. They need to, you just need to win a one-on-one tackle in the open space, even if it's already a 10, 15-yard gain, just to make that drive continue to go rather than giving up that big play down the field.
No, for sure. And on their side for Coach Pennington's Caledonia team, same question. What do they have to do to win this game again and to move on and get their rematch and retest against what we expect to be Rocker? We'll see. Maybe the Falcons will make every fan base except for one in West Michigan happy and get it done, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think, the Scots all season long had a great defensive performance, didn't give up many points to opposing teams. One of the few exceptions, besides the Rockford game, was against Grandville. They gave up 40 points, and that was uncharacteristic for them. So I mean, they kind of are on the same idea of they're trying to find a way to stop the Grandville.
So the key to the game is just tackling.
Yeah, the key to the game is tackling and trying to get a stop, because I think you see 90 combined points the last time these two teams playing. So the immediate thing that jumps out to you is who's gonna stop the other team, or at least try to. But I mean, so I think, defensively, you saw them shifting their fronts quite a bit, moving looks, bringing guys closer in and out of the line of scrimmage, trying to mess with Grandville. And for the most part, the Bulldogs handled it pretty well, still moving down the field. But we'll kind of see if they're able to take, I'm sure they're watching a lot of what Rockford has done against the Bulldogs in the past, trying to replicate that, come up with something. And if McKenzie is not at 100% offensively, they're going to have to find a little bit more balance. I mean, they have a very talented running back in Townsend. He wasn't featured as much against the Bulldogs, but he's a capable playmaker. So if McKenzie is not at 100%, or if the Bulldogs are able to kind of slow down the quarterback run game, see if he's able to step up.
All right, that game is going to be 12:30. I think we're just still going to do the normal half-hour pregame show. We're going to have to test things out in terms of our playoffs this week and how long a broadcast we're going to do, but it does best to do it on the half for broadcast reasons that are behind the scenes. It works best to schedule and to do things on the half hour of the 14 different streams that I put things out to nowadays. So should be able to see us 12:30 game is being played at East Kentwood, by the way. Of course, that comes down to field conditions at Caledonia. It's a little trashed by this time of the year, and also I'm loving that because there's room at East Kentwood for media, so that's always exciting on our end. So 12:30, that game on MichiganSportsRadio.com/MGN and the MGN YouTube, MGN Facebook, MGN Twitter, and everywhere else that you may normally try to find our game. Playoffs, so video streams are off now outside of NFHS stuff, which this one actually might have an NFHS stream if it's at EK that you might be able to watch at the same time. I don't know that for 100%, so don't quote me on that, please, but you might be able to try to sync our audio with that broadcast that is going on. All right, we'll step aside one last time, and it's our playoff picks. It's the most anticipated segment of the year, without question, I'm sure, for people, as your two preeminent football experts make their annual picks. Again, unfortunately, you can't put money. We're not putting money on high school football, of course, but if you were able to, trust, because we're never wrong. We've proven that all year long. We'll be right back.
I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities. I've heard it said that professional coaches measure success in rings, college coaches measure success in championships, and high school coaches measure it in titles. But youth coaches measure success in smiles. At Centennial Securities, we're like the youth coach. Our success is measured by the smiles on the faces of our satisfied clients. If you're a Centennial Securities customer, you know what I mean. If you're not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FINRA.
The sinister cries haunted Mary through the night. Dawn neared, and still the voice tormented her. She ran towards the safety of her car, flung open the door, and a coyote had somehow gotten locked inside. But the damaged interior was covered thanks to Farmers Insurance. Coyote Carpool, August 1st, 2015. Talk to a farmer's agent. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Contact the Scott Bates Agency today, 616-531-3441. A proud supporter of MichiganGameNight.com.
All right, welcome back. Tailgate Report, Nate Chandler. Here we go. Playoff preview, playoff picks. We're going to start in Division 1. I think we started in the bottom divisions, moved up last year. We'll start in D1 this time, and we'll start in Region 1, District 1. We call this the one of you top 3 seeds should have lost a game to West Ottawa, because then even, actually, EK2, one of these teams should have just, actually not, okay, East Kentwood probably needed it to make it work.
I probably can afford that.
For the other 3, you should have thrown your game to West Ottawa, because then they're in. Instead, this is what you got. So, sorry guys, that's what you get for being, sporting and all. Let's make our picks. Rockford, East Kentwood, Caledonia, Grandville. I'll go first. I'll go chalk in the first matchup, Rockford over East Kentwood, and I thought a lot about this rematch game. Again, going back to, I've talked to a couple different people that were at the Rockford game, have maybe seen Caledonia play all year, and kind of how things have been trending one way or the other. Obviously, we know how things are trending with the Bulldogs as well as hopefully anyone. Mm-hmm. I got the 3 seed. I got Grandville going on to the championship game. So I'll have Rockford, Grandville in the championship game. What do you have in your championship game?
I'm with you on Rockford over East Kentwood. I'm going chalk there. I think, hard to make the argument against Rockford now. And same thing. I've gone back and forth on this one. The inner homer in me wants to pick the Bulldogs as well, and say that they pulled the upset there. They kind of learned from the first matchup and win, but I think I just can't talk myself into it. I think I'm going Caledonia over Grandville. I do expect it to be another close game. I think the Bulldogs be right in it. I just kind of think Caledonia is going to get the rematch against Rockford.
All right, so I'll let you pick your rematch then first. Who do you have, Caledonia versus Rockford?
Well, I mean, we saw this play out just a week ago at this point, and so Rockford was the clear better team. I think Caledonia would be excited to get another shot at them, see what they can do. But I mean, all season long, I've kind of been saying until somebody beats Rockford, they're going to need to show it to me on the field, and so I'm sticking with that. I've got Rockford.
You know what I'm doing, don't you?
You going to do it? You've got
it. It doesn't even matter anything. I'm just going to throw it out. I'm going to throw out, even if you say I'm throwing out logic, I don't care. Grandville, you're winning the district. Bulldogs, you're doing this. Grandville takes down Rockford. They complete the double revenge bracket. Grandville moves on, wins the district championship. Mark it.
All right.
It's happening. I'm going to speak it into existence. Grandville first triumphs Caledonia, then they triumph over Rockford. All right, Division 2 then. We start in Region 1, District 1, the Murderers Row of Forest Hill Central, Reese Puffer, and then Mona Shores and Traverse City Central Chandler. Let's just pick the whole district at a time now. Give us your championship game and who's winning it.
All right, so I've got Mona Shores against Forest Hill Central in the championship game, and I'm going the upset in this one. I've got Mona Shores taking down Forest Hill Central.
All right, I am going to have the same. Want to touch on this first matchup, though, a little bit more because I think Reese Puffer is going to put up quite the fight in that contest. We know how good Forest Hill Central's defense and offense, the whole team has been, of course, going unbeaten. Their highest points allowed was 14 week 1 against Jenison, of all teams, as your top offensive unit this year. So we know how good this is, but Reese Puffer can fight. They can stay with you. They stay close with Mona Shores. They stayed really close. Almost could have beaten Muskegon. Keep an eye out for that game. I think Mona Shores handles business quite easily. And in the championship game, they've gotten pushed around last week. I do think Mona Shores comes back strong, though. And I do think the Sailors are moving on to the regionals.
I agree.
All right. So we got Mona Shores on there. And who will they be taking on in the region? We've got one other district here. This is District 2 with one close area team. It's Byron Center versus Portage Northern, Battle Creek Central, East Lansing. I'll go first. I've got Byron Center over Portage Northern in that game. I do think they do win. I think that's a really good game, but also very good that Byron Center gets to draw. I'm going to have East Lansing then over Battle Creek Central in that next contest. Would be interesting, of course, if we saw Battle Creek Central and Byron Center play again as they did earlier in this season. And then in the championship there, I'm going to have Byron Center over East Lansing. So I am going to have Byron Center moving on to play likely the winner of that FHC versus Mona Shores game. Also, by the way, if Byron Center does win, assuming that even if Grandville's going, they're at Rockford, that's probably the game we are going to be at in week 2. So what do you got? I got Byron Center.
I agree with you in the first game. I've got Byron Center over Portage Northern. I feel like this is a really good draw for Byron Center compared to where they could have been in terms of the district. Portage Northern had a loss to West Ottawa earlier in the season, so I'm just kind of drawing connections back to the OK Red here. And when you think of Byron Center, played a decent game against Grandville. I think Byron Center's going to win in the first round there. I'm going to disagree with you. I've got Battle Creek over East Lansing. I think East Lansing coming off 2 losses. I think Battle Creek Central gets the win there, and I've got the rematch Byron Center, and I've also got Byron Center winning.
All right, so we got the Bulldogs moving on there, and likely then seeing Mona Shores, we'll see. That's FHC Mona Shores is such a 50-50 toss-up for me that hard to even pick it. All right, Division 3. We start in Division 3, Region 2, District 1. As you see some of what else is going on. And This is the Muskegon district as they take on Sparta. Coopersville has Cedar Springs. I'll let you pick this district first.
All right. In the first game, I've got Muskegon over Sparta. Both teams coming in with 4 straight wins. I just think really tough luck for Sparta and who they're playing in round 1. I think Sparta would have a chance against a lot of teams. I don't think Muskegon is one of them. I've got Muskegon winning that one. And the other matchup there, I've got Cedar Springs over Coopersville. 0-4 start for Cedar Springs. They've won 5 straight. Last year we saw them beat Muskegon in the playoffs. I kind of think they've got some playoff magic in them. Coopersville been up and down a little bit all season long. I've got Cedar Springs winning that one. Muskegon, Cedar Springs rematch in the district, and I've got Muskegon winning this one.
Like I said, I tipped my hand earlier when I talked about what I think about Muskegon, so I think you already know who my district champion is going to be. I do have Muskegon, therefore, over Sparta. I don't think it's going to be too bad. I think that might be a running clock game. I think Sparta's been good. They've closed the year strong, but I think that might be a running clock game. Coopersville, Cedar Springs, I got the same. I like Cedar Springs T, even against the kind of physical Coopersville team, and I got Muskegon controlling things against Cedar Springs. I think this is a team that's really, really ready to go on a run. And now we go to the district that has one of the games that we are going to have here on game night this Friday, St. Joe and East Grand Rapids, then Zeeland West and Lowell. We're going to pick games that we're calling, but we're going to wind up picking this game that we're calling. I'll start in this one. St. Joe, East Grand Rapids. It's 8-1 versus 4-5. East Grand Rapids, though, is so battle-tested. They play so many good teams. They've played them tough. They've had to scratch and claw to make the playoffs. The Grandville one I added for a little bit of dramatic effect earlier in the Homer effect. This might be kind of my biggest upset that I'm actually going to stake my flag to. I've actually got the 4-1 here.
All right.
I actually think that East Grand Rapids goes in at 4-5, takes down an 8-1 team. Sounds crazy, I know. Just a feeling about the way they finished the year versus where St. Joe's at. I've been on East Grand Rapids for years too. I think I picked them to win their division last year, their conference last year, and they won 3 games or whatever.
Okay.
So I got that, and I do have Zeeland West beating Lowell, and then I've got Zeeland West. They will take down East Grand Rapids and win the district.
All right, I'm not going to pick the same upset you had there.
I didn't think you would.
I'm going St. Joe over East Grand Rapids. St. Joseph's only loss coming in week 1 to Traverse City Central. They've got multiple D2 wins. I think East Grand Rapids, as you said, played a tough schedule. They played Rockford, South Christian in there as well. But at 4-5, I think I'm going to pick St. Joseph there. I agree with you. Zeeland West over Lowell. I think the physical game that we previewed earlier, I've just started to pick against the Ducks in the matchup like that. So I've got Zeeland West winning that one. And then I am also taking Zeeland West over St. Joseph in the district.
All right, so yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's not a great pick, but I wanted at least 1 versus 4, and that's the only one that I realistically immediately saw. On to Division 4 in the West Michigan area. Again, we're mostly just doing kind of the OK Conference type areas. We start in Region 1, Division 1, Whitehall, Big Rapids, Fruitport, Ludington. I think this one is going to be probably real chalk on how we're going to go. I'll just go first. Actually, the championship game might be interesting, but in terms of the first round, Whitehall moves on, Fruitport moves on for me. I got a battle. I got an offensive slugfest in the championship game. Fruitport's played so well. I think Whitehall is unreal good, though. I'm going to have Whitehall by a nose in that game. What say you?
Yeah, I'm going to match you there. I've got Whitehall winning pretty convincingly in the first round. They were 9-0. They played 0 close games throughout the whole regular season, I think.
Including Unity. Unity.
I think double-digit wins in every single game. So I've got them beating Big Rapids. I also have Fruitport over Ludington. Fruitport has put up some big offensive numbers. They've got 5 wins in a row. So I've got that Whitehall-Fruitport matchup, and I think Whitehall wins it pretty convincingly.
Oh, you think they win it convincingly?
I do.
I just think that Fruitport offense can do so much that they can kind of keep it in if it is a shootout. Who will they be playing, though, in their regional final? Well, this is kind of the all OK conference. It's South Christian, Grand Rapids Christian, Unity Christian, Forest Hills Eastern. I'll let you pick this district first.
All right, starting off, I'm going to take South Christian over Grand Rapids Christian. Right. South Christian undefeated. Grand
Rapids Christian 3-6.
Yeah, it's 3-6. I mean, credit to them for getting in with the new system there. Wouldn't have been possible. Wouldn't have been possible in the past. they did lose to South Christian in week 1, 42-7. So I'm taking South Christian there. I've got Unity over Forest Hills Eastern. Kind of 5 wins for Unity, kind of sandwiched in between 2 losses, 2 at the beginning, 2 at the end. So kind of a mixed season for Unity Christian, but I've got them winning this playoff matchup, setting up a South Christian Unity Christian district, and I've got South Christian.
All right. I am going to have the same in the first round as you. This game is going to be a lot closer than it was last time, I think. If it was that much of a blowout last time, I think you can get Grand Rapids Christian a little bit closer within a couple more scores, possibly. This is also, I think, going to be a battle. Forest Hills Eastern has such a strong running game. I mean, they have a kind of D1, D2 type prospect at tailback. But I do have Unity Christian kind of leaning on some of that playoff experience and big play ability to win that game. So then you get South Christian, Unity Christian. I really wanted to go Unity. If they had beaten West Catholic and they did get out to an early lead, I probably would have picked Unity. But I go back to how they lost to Whitehall, the way Whitehall and their passing attack threw over top of them. I think DeHaan and company at South Christian are going to do a similar job to them, and I do have South Christian winning there. All right, on to Division 5. We are going to do Division 5 here as well. And in Division 5, we go first to Region 1, District 2, which they'll have quite the travel, by the way, when it comes to their regional. This is kind of more teams on the Lakeshore, some other teams in there. Oak Ridge and Shepherd, Belding, Howard, Tri-County. I got Oak Ridge moving on. I got Belding moving on. We'll do this one kind of quickly. Mostly it's just to talk about Belding. I do have Belding winning this district. I know Oak Ridge is really good, but that explosive offense for Belding, I have winning this district.
I've got the same district matchup there. I've got Oak Ridge winning as well as Belding in the first round. I've got Oak Ridge over Belding.
Okay.
However, though, I think maybe that's just punishing Belding for being so hard to pick the conference this year and going back and forth on not really knowing who the better team was there, I think. But, yeah, I think the offense has been really good for Belding, but I'm going Oak Ridge.
No, that's certainly a good pick and would be a very fun game. Region 2, District 1. Tell me how Grand Rapids Catholic Central wins this one. I think it's going to go, actually not completely chalk. Catholic Central wins, but fill in the rest for me.
Yeah, pretty much all I had for my notes was it's GRCC, duh. So I think I've got Grand Rapids Catholic Central pretty convincingly winning round 1. I've got Berrien Springs over Hopkins. Okay. Hopkins lost 3 straight coming into the playoffs. Yep. I think it's Grand Rapids Catholic Central pretty easily winning another district title.
All right, I've got Catholic Central winning it all. I do have Hopkins beating Berrien Springs, though. I know they finished the year poorly, but I always like the team that's playing the Grand Rapids area schedule when it comes to kind of the D5, D6 type Southwest regions and districts. I always kind of trust that because I know that the 5-4 record for Hopkins, I mean, you can see in the playoff points already, is so close to the 6-2 record for Berrien Springs. They're battle tested. They're playing bigger schools most of the year, so I do have Hopkins there. After that, in terms of what's next, we move on to Division 6. We aren't going to go too far into it. We're mostly going to talk about West Catholic. I do think West Catholic there's a lot of likely teams, I think, at this point in time, talking about in terms of West Michigan, they're a little bit state title or bust. You hate to be that way and say that, but that's kind of where they're at, especially with the route they got, because it's a heck of a route.
Yeah, I think they've got a serious chance to do some damage in the playoffs here. I think maybe a little uneasy when they were down to Unity Christian there and they had lost a few weeks back. They start to kind of question, are they for real? But I think the way they finished the Unity Christian game, winning that one pretty convincingly, I think they're still set up to have a long run.
And then D7, D8, and the 8-man divisions, we don't cover them quite as much, and that kind of gets out of the OK conference. So we'll leave those alone, maybe touch on it based on where we're going and what's going on later in the playoffs. All right, that's our playoff preview. A couple games, 6:30 Friday night, Lowell, Zeeland West, and then, of course, the big one, 12:30 Saturday afternoon, Grandville versus Caledonia, the rematch. Cannot wait for it. He is Chandler Timmer. I am Nate Dreyer. This has been the Tailgate Report. We'll see you all Friday and Saturday.